Retail is an industry well known for firefighting. So we've a problem with this. Well, we're going to throw them on a training course for a day in time management, and they're going to come back and they're going to be really good at time management. It doesn't really work, okay?
We're looking at the retail industry in this final episode of Embracing Life's Tapestry.
So there's so many different things that you're doing, and I think for me it was empowering people in the workplace through training. So I very quickly seen that if you gave people the knowledge and shared it and didn't hold it to yourself, John, that it empowers them.
Louise has worked in this industry for over 14 years, coaching and mentoring leadership teams.
But I would always bring people around and I'd share that knowledge because I think it's really, really important that we empower people with the training.
She's a qualified business coach and mentor, EMCC and ICF certified.
So my whole thing is I go in, I talk to your team. So I talk to the staff on the shop floor one-to-one. They sit in the office with me, we have a cup of tea, we chat about why they're in the business, why they enjoy their role. And I then put together a needs analysis where I go, okay, there's a trend here, what we need to look at doing. So maybe it's the store manager that needs training. Maybe it's the area manager that needs to be really, really clear on the expectation to the store manager so they can filter it down to their team.
If you're in the retail sector and you want to grow your business exponentially, you need this type of training.
So there's different approaches we take, but I'm very aware that it's not a one size fits all and it's very much to the individual.
Well, let's get into it.
I realised by working with people that the one gift we can give people, and we're very lucky in the Western world, is actually knowledge, John. And if we look at, some countries in Africa, other countries in Asia, they're not as lucky to get, the schooling system, even the fees over here compared to the US. We're so blessed. And a lot of people in retail, they fall into it, John. So a lot of them might have done college courses, they might have dropped out, they might have gone into retail by accident. And some of them might just, I suppose, have a worry around, is retail, is it a good career? Is it as good as being an engineer or being in banking or, all of these sorts of things? And for me, working with people, and they were just amazing people through the years, different age groups, John, some of them were in retail 30 years, maybe didn't have a formal education. And I always looked to retail. It was a school and training because when you're on the shop floor dealing with people, John, interacting, that's communication skills, that's interpersonal skills. When we do promotions in the store and we market an event, you're actually doing marketing. So there's all of these core kind of things that you're doing. If we look at, stock and looking at the sales, we're doing a buying role. So there's so many different things that you're doing. And I think for me, it was empowering people in the workplace through training. So I very quickly seen that if you gave people the knowledge and shared it and didn't hold it to yourself, John, that it empowers them and they actually feel more enthusiastic. They're more bought into it. So for me, my management style would be very much collaborative anyways. But I would always bring people around and I'd share that knowledge because I think it's really, really important that we empower people with the training. And do you know what, John? If they don't want to go any further in it and they just want to stay in the role they're in, that's okay. But for those that want more and that are hungry for it, give them that information. So I think there wasn't a lot of that happening, to go back to your point, in retail. Retail is an industry well known for firefighting. And what I mean by that is the training is a band-aid fix. So we've a problem with this. Well, we're going to throw them on a training course for a day in time management, and they're going to come back and they're going to be really good at time management. It doesn't really work, okay? There's a difference between training and implementing, okay? So we have to be really, really clear on how we implement the training at the store level and how we incorporate it into that person's day-to-day role. So if you're standing at a till Monday to Friday, and you're sending someone on a course, how does that impact them at the till Monday to Friday? So it's been really, really clear on why they should have the training and what are they going to get out of it that's going to improve their day and their role in the store. So I didn't see a lot of trainers doing that. So my whole thing is I go in, I talk to your team. So I talk to the staff on the shop floor one-to-one. They sit in the office with me, we have a cup of tea, we chat about why they're in the business, why they enjoy their role. And I then put together a needs analysis where I go, okay, there's a trend here, what we need to look at doing. So maybe it's the store manager that needs training. Maybe it's the area manager that needs to be really, really clear on the expectation to the store manager so they can filter it down to their team. So there's different approaches we take, but I'm very aware that it's not a one size fits all, and it's very much to the individual.
I love that word firefighting that you mentioned there a minute ago. I wouldn't say I love it, but it's been used quite a lot in industry over the years. Yeah. So what type of services does Louise Lally Training Academy provide to her clients?
Yeah, so we look at the training needs. We look at, I suppose, what have we in place at the moment, John? What's working and what isn't working? And to touch on what you said there with the firefighting isn't sustainable. If we look at managing in a crisis, and if we have a manager that is maybe poor at delegating, and maybe they're poor at delegating because they don't trust that their team are going to do the jobs as well as they are. Okay, that's a big problem that you see. So what ends up happening is that manager ends up wanting to do all of that workload. Most of the workload isn't really getting done, or it's getting done, but maybe substandard getting done. That manager doesn't really know how to manage their time or delegate. So when we look at that, we look at, right, are they being proactive in their role or reactive? Okay, so firefighting to me is reactive. That's a short-term thing. If it's the case that something has happened in the store, someone was out sick, a delivery was late, okay, well, we need to be a bit reactive because we didn't know it was going to happen. If we're managing that way long term, what ends up happening to the team around you is they're actually quite on edge, okay? And they don't really know what it is they're supposed to be doing. Because what happens is that manager that's kind of running around the place, not being organized, not slowing down to speed up. And I think that's really, really important. I think sometimes people think that pace quantifies for your value you bring to the organization. Okay, be very mindful that someone might be very fast. It doesn't mean they're effective or efficient. Okay, and there's a big difference in that, because in retail it is a fast-paced environment, John, but you see people running around really fast and I go, whoa, put the brakes on for a minute. Why are we running around? Like, why do we have to be doing, like, it shouldn't be something we're doing every day, because we should be organizing our day and getting our team brought into supporting us running the day. So again, I would sit down and I talk to those leaders, John, and go, okay, what does a typical day look like for you? And I would hear them tell me, well, I do this, and there's a lot of I's. Okay, so if I start hearing a lot of, well, I have to do this and I have to do that, I immediately think to myself, okay, they're obviously feeling that everything is on their shoulders. Okay, so they're either feeling unsupported by the team, John, okay, or they're not communicating that out effectively to the team to get support from them. So it falls into one of those two areas, okay? So I listen to the store manager. They talk me through what they do. Okay, we do this. And I'm like, okay. They talk me through how they organise their day. And then I come up with a plan and how can we look at helping you in your role, so supporting you to organise the team and yourself more effectively. So I'll give them some tools. So one of the tools might be a morning briefing with the team. Okay, so we start the day, we tell the team how we done yesterday. We were up 20% on last year. This year, we're really wanting to push our bakery products, or we're really wanting to push our promotions. They just started 3 days ago. We've got a bit of a slump. Can we maybe look at the ends and look at the merchandising? Is it neat and tidy for the customers? So what does that morning briefing look like? How do we set up the team? We then look at how we set up the day. So are we doing a floor walk? Are we walking the shop floor every day? And what you find with some managers is, John, if they're firefighting, they're not doing a proper floor walk. They're not looking at all the areas of the store. They have their head in a silo. They're doing a little area, and the rest of the team are maybe left to their own devices a little bit. Okay, so there's a little bit of coaching on that. And then we get the area manager. And the area manager is there to support them in that domain. So instead of the area manager coming in, John, and going, that's not done, I say to the area manager, no, we don't do that. We ask questions, we understand where their head is at and why they're behaving that way. Because it's really a behavioural change, John, that we're looking to make, okay? Because people have gotten into the habit of behaving this way in the workplace, of reacting. So I'll say to the area manager, don't go up and tell them that they don't have the front door cleaned. Don't go up and tell them they need to do a display. Instead, ask them, what do they see in the floor walk? What do they see when they walk to their departments? And have asked them questions around that. Well, what do you think could be different here? What do you think you would do? And get them thinking for themselves, not being prescriptive and telling them all the answers. Because then what ends up happening, John, is we get used to you telling me what needs to be fixed. So now I'm relying on you to tell me that. Okay. So I'm not thinking for myself. And then that's another problem in itself that can happen. So it's really to have conversations, asking really great questions. I use a combination between training, so giving them the tools, like a little toolbox, and then I also give them really great questions to ask. That's taking the coaching stuff and ask those great open-ended questions to draw out where the issue is with them. So that's two areas that I focus on with the training academy when I'm working with teams in retail.
Yeah. I've known a couple of people who've worked in retail over the years as people, you know, friends, whatever, colleagues. And one person was a great communicator. He went to a very senior level in Tesco Ireland, up to, I think, was close to a director level. This person has excellent communication skills. And what he's very good at is making the person he's speaking to feel good about themselves. And when he gives people advice, it's always, you know, meant for the best reason. It's never a criticism. It's always positive feedback or a way you can improve to move forward in your life. He's a great communicator, and he's very good at putting his hand or arm around people and making them feel good about themselves. The second person was not a great communicator. He tended to communicate in his own local kind of dialect, which kind of Limerick, South Tipperary area, used to call men boy. That would rub people up the wrong way, for example, because they felt they'd been talked down to. So I think when you work in retail as a manager, your communication style really can set you apart, can set you up for, you know, failure on one hand, or it could set you up for success on another hand. So you have to really adapt your style to suit the people you're working with. And what floats your boat doesn't necessarily float your staff's boat. You've got to figure out what floats their boats and talk to them the way they want to be talked to or treated, the way they want to be treated well. You know, so I think it's a case of understanding who's in your team, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how do they prefer to be communicated with, not spoken to or at. Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah,
So,
communication.
yeah, I'll throw a question here to Louise. Our mutual friend, Kate Rooney, has recently completed a diploma or an advanced diploma in team coaching. Do you see yourself going down the same road in terms of taking in more coaching of teams as against individuals?
To answer your question, I don't know what I at the moment because I do the coaching, and predominantly my business is training, but I think anyone that's good at training, John, they're good at asking questions. So I think for me, the coaching goes hand in hand. I think if I was to do the team coaching, I would probably want to run workshops around it to have a return on investment for me. So to answer your question for now, no. Kate is fantastic in that space. I'm going to stay in my lane, which is training. I do the training. I suppose I used the coaching in Kingston to really elevate I was doing coaching already, but to really elevate the structure around that when I was having those conversations with people, because I don't advertise coaching, but I think anyone that does training, I feel they should have some sort of a qualification in coaching, because training isn't that, training I can show you how, but when you know how to do it, and obviously that's if you do an induction with a new person, you're not going to coach them because they don't know what they have to do.
Yeah.
So if they're competent in the role, John, and if people are saying to me, they've been here 5 years, I want you to train them. that to me isn't a training piece. It's really a coaching piece, because there's something that's happened to that person that's made them disengage in the workplace. So are we asking the right questions? Are we understanding where they're at? So again, I would bring in that side of things, and touching on what you said there around communication styles. At the moment, John, I do DISC. So it's a psychometric assessment tool. It's again
Yeah.
another tool in my toolbox. I don't advertise it, John, but I use it in the academy. And I'm using that at the moment with 3 directors in a company, because the 3 of them have really different communication styles, which is what you touched on there, John. One of them is a really good communicator. Another one maybe isn't as proactive in communication. Maybe they're a little bit, oh, I'll jump in when I really have to, but I don't really like to make decisive decisions, but they need to. And there's a little bit of friction there, because the decision making is being left to one person. And that again comes back to communication styles, and appreciating that just because I am as decisive as you, and I reflective think, and I'm slow to make a decision, it doesn't mean that I have to be the same as you, John, to add value to the conversation. Okay, you have to bring something else to the table, whereas I might slow you down, and you might feel that's frustrating because your pace might be faster than mine. But you need to appreciate that I might be slowing it down, but I'm going to bring a different angle or a different perspective to the conversation. So I'm doing a DISC profile with those 3 managers, and the conversation will be all around appreciating each other's communication styles and adapting. What you touched on there is really important. Adapting and appreciating, I think, are 2 really important words that I don't hear enough when we talk about people and we talk about communication and all of that. Because when we talk about communication, we talk about me, I. We should be talking about communication. I'm adapting to John's style of communication. I changed the tone of my voice. I changed my body language. I'm receptive. I'm meeting them where they're at. So I think that's really important as well. That we have the self-awareness of how we are and how we might be perceived, and also how we get buy-in. And you touched on this as well, from the rest of the team around us. That we're, not maybe talking in a condescending way, in language that we might feel is harmless and might be, not biased or whatever that is to other people, but we have the awareness, and that we change and we adapt to suit those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what you're saying there about the DISC profile, because you have your dominant personalities.
Yeah.
They're quite, upfront with people. They're outspoken. They have got strong eye contact with people. And when they ask you a question, they expect the answer there and then. And they're not
Yeah.
afraid to make their voice heard in a room. And the more people that's in that room, the more energized they are effectively. But the danger with people like that is they can suck energy from other people in the room, particularly the quieter, more introverted personality. Then you have your influential people who would kind of put their arm around you and say, come here, Louise, or come here, John, let's have a chat. Sit down there. And they'll have a great one-to-one conversation with you for maybe an hour, and it can go on for even longer if they keep going, but they love to talk and love to tell stories and to talk with people, not at people. And then you have your steadfast communicators, who are people who like to think about things, that don't have great eye contact. They prefer to kind of sit diagonal across the table from you rather than sitting in front of you or beside you. And then, of course, you have your compliant people who are very quiet, kind of introverted people. They're more listeners than speakers, I suppose you could say. And they kind of deliberate over things quite long. And everything has to be, their pencils have to be in the right place on the table, ducks in a row type of people. Yeah. So how do you get all these people to work together seamlessly? It's quite a, it's quite a task in itself. You have to get people to think about their communication style. So you need your dominant style personality. Do you say, I better slow down here, let somebody else have a chance to talk? The person is more compliant or steadfast. They have to find their voice and find the courage within themselves to speak up. Otherwise, the people in the room will say to themselves, what's John or Louise thinking? Not hearing anything from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where one-to-one coaching comes in, I think, more effectively. Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting, John, because I sat in a meeting with these 3 different personality types, and the disc was going through my head a little bit, because I was thinking, you know, I could see the dominant, I could see the influential, and obviously I'm influential. That's my personality. I've gotten them done twice. I think one was in Woody's, and Woody's actually was really interesting. A lot of the Woody's managers are high green, so they're very steady, you know, which is
Yeah.
really interesting. So I would have been high I. So I would, again, where my skill set would come in, John, I suppose, and appreciating my style, and appreciating the style, maybe my areas of blind spots would be the detail. So blue is my lowest. So I have a girl called Anya, and she works with me part-time, and Anya reads through the manuals. Anya checks off, and Anya comes back to Louise in emails, and she goes, Louise, you're missing this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, we'll change this, because I need that blue detail when it comes to sending out proposals, manuals, workbooks to companies. It needs to, there can't be spelling errors, it has to look right, designed properly. So she'll go over the design. I might then have a few edits, and we'll both kind of sign it off together. But John, if I was left to do that myself, would I look at the detail? No way. I would find probably a reason around it, because it takes away my energy. So I think it's appreciating your skill set, and what gives you energy, and doing as much as that as you can. And then what doesn't give you energy, understanding that it's not a bad thing. We all have different skill sets, and that's okay. We can get someone else to support us in that part of it.
Yeah. I've done the disc profile myself a few times, and every time I've done it, it's come up with a different answer. For the most recent time, I did it with a person called Pat Duffy, and he did an executive disc profile with me, and it came out that I had a fair bit of D in me and a fair bit of C, believe it or not. Now, they're two, opposites, I suppose you could say, but I would be quiet in the room. But if I feel somebody is trying to, muddy the water or look after their own interests, I'm not afraid to speak up at that stage and defend the rest of the people in the room. I can become, quite outspoken from pushed into a corner as such, and not afraid to defend my corner. Yeah. And I
That's
don't,
really interesting.
and I wouldn't support fools very gladly either, to be quite honest. I call those people out eventually when it suits me in front of the whole room, and they suffer for it, as you probably witnessed once or twice. Yeah. So do you think with, the increasing number of UK multiples here in Ireland, that the pace within retail is becoming faster and faster? Now, I know you mentioned there about Woody's, that they're quite steady in their managerial approach. Now, that's an Irish-owned company, but you have the likes of Next and many more UK multiples here in Ireland. Do you think the pace is getting faster and faster within retail, and there's more and more pressure being put on store managers and staff within stores to perform?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, John. I think that the likes the multinationals like Next, the store managers are probably have it easier in the likes of those bigger companies. And I'll tell you why. Because they have the infrastructure from an IT perspective. So a lot of their processes would be streamlined. So, in Next, you have a scanner, and the scanner will tell you that it's sold a jumper in a small. And then the scanner will tell you, the HHT will tell you where you need to pick that small in the stock room, what aisle it's in. So essentially, I could hand you a scanner. You've never worked in the store, tell you that the stock room's upstairs on the right, and you could go and pick that stock and then put it on the floor. So there's processes in place, the multinationals, from an operational perspective, that makes it very easy for the store managers to manage. I suppose where I see the challenges, I suppose, is maybe the franchise-owned businesses. So, a lot of kind of the food retailers, even the clothing stores, maybe they've 2 or 3 sites, not like a Dunn's, but like, the BWG. Yeah, those kind of, exactly there. I think that model is a little bit different, because I suppose, a franchise model is probably trickier. I find, than a multinational. It's probably the hardest to run, because you're given the name above the door, if you can imagine, like you're given the name above the door. That's great. They give you kind of some of the material there, and you're kind of left, to do it. And that's fine if you have a really experienced manager team. If you don't, and you're recruiting a management team there, and obviously with the increase in minimum wage, John, it's become a big problem for those companies, those SME businesses, not the multinationals, because now they've had to restructure their pay. Their payroll has gone up, but they're trying then to see where can they pull it back. Their margins are set in a lot of the products that they have with the suppliers. So where now are they going to pull that extra money from? They might have had a supervisor on €15 an hour, and now the supervisor is on a similar rate to the staff. So now you've another issue, because you have to literally restructure your whole pay. And it was, I was reading an article from one of the ministers, and he said, well, the retailers don't have to change their pay. Come on. If you have increased a minimum wage, the staff come to you, John. They used to come to me when they increased the minimum wage there a few years back. And the supervisor might have been on €1.50 extra an hour to the staff. And now the staff are on similar, and there's only maybe 40 cents in the difference. You can't expect that supervisor to be happy that they're getting a lot more responsibility, but there's only 40 cents in the difference from somebody that has no responsibility. So these are the challenges you have. And I think for those franchises and those smaller SMEs, I think the challenge is greater than the multinationals, because they don't have the IT infrastructure or the processes set up, because there's a lot of money that needs to go in behind that, and a lot of budget. So they're doing a lot of manual processes, okay? And with the manual processes, you need more man hours to do it. Okay. And so they've more paperwork. Yeah. So it's a different challenge, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're saying there, Louise, because with the UK multiples, it's highly automated operations they have. And as soon as stock is sold on the shop floor, it's replenished from the stock room then. And then, of course, what's replenished from the stock room is going to be replenished from head office or from a warehouse eventually on a daily basis. Whereas with your franchise operations, like your supervisor centers of the world, they're going to have to put a lot of people on the floor, a lot of people in stock rooms to keep the operation ticking along. It's not as automated. They're also paying a franchise fee to the likes of SuperValu themselves, Musgrave operation. That's on, so their margins are squeezed. I've seen that recently with, the SuperValu weekly vouchers you get, whereas I used to get maybe 10 off 50. I'm getting 5 off 35 now, for example. So they're cutting back on the amount of on the value of the vouchers they're giving to their customers as a way of, keeping their margin above water, I suppose you could say. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
What inspires you to be the most successful person in life?
Who inspires me?
No, what inspires you to be successful in life?
What inspires me? My motivators, I suppose, John, are at my core is helping other people. It inspires me in the sense that if I'm working with someone and I sit with them and I show them something and they go, "Oh, that's great, thanks for helping me," and I go, "Do you know what? I'm here every step of the way. I'll hand hold you through this process until you feel comfortable and confident enough to do it." And I see the look in their face and I can see them smiling and going, "Thanks, Louise." That inspires me. Those little interactions, John, they fill me up. I could be really tired, but I always go in with a smile on my face. It doesn't matter what's going on. I'm a big believer, you go in, you show up, you put a smile in your face, and how you show up in the world, it impacts the mood of the people around you. So I'm inspired by the people that I have around me. I work with people I genuinely align my values to. That's really important in business. If somebody I feel doesn't treat staff well, I won't work with them. And that's really important. That is really, really important, because at the end of the day, if someone is treating their staff poorly, or in a way that I feel is unfair, that's where that actually doesn't align to me, and I won't work with a business like that. A business needs to put its people first, in order for me to feel that I'm making a difference in that company. So that's really, really important. Because otherwise, what's the point in me being there? I'm not going to go in there and be disciplining people on training. And and I say that I very quickly, John, suss out what the purpose of the training is. And what's the longevity of the training? Are we building a sustainable plan in the training? Because if it's not, then me going in there, and a band-aid fix, number one, it's not going to help long term. And number two, the staff are going to feel really confused and lost. So I really want to spend a while with them, understanding them, supporting them, in that process. So yeah, and I suppose as well, my family would be a big inspiration. I look up to them. Their work ethic is unbelievable. They come rain or shine, John, they'll show up. The worst, they'll always show up. And it's not for selfish reasons. It's because they made a promise to someone they were going to be there, and they're going to be there. So I have that same work ethic inside me. And I don't expect that of other people. Because I don't think that's fair. And I think there's a lot of kind of conversations of, there's this genre coming up through the ranks now, and they down tools at this time. And I go, appreciate that. That's okay. You don't want them to burn out. So it's not that we should ever put our expectations on top of other people, because we're all individuals. But it's important that we embrace our differences. And we use them to be a better person. So it inspires me to feel I'm making a difference in the world. As corny as it may sound, if I go into a retailer and the manager leaves with a smile on her face, and up until that point, John, she's been really stressed that she hasn't been performing in the role, and she's gone home to her husband and going, I'm trying really hard, I feel overworked and stressed. But it's just that they were never shown or taught how to actually manage people. This is the problem. They don't know. A staff member comes and they're aggressive, or they're angry, or they're upset. They genuinely don't know how to manage. So I feel by helping them manage, I'm giving them, I'm helping their stress levels. I'm helping them manage in the workplace, and I'm helping them progress in their career. And I had someone do that for me many years ago. And Next, I talked about a lady called Patricia. She had that for me. I was going home crying in the evening. I didn't know how to handle people, John. So I feel that has come through in what I do now with store managers. Similar thing. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier on in the conversation that you are high I. That's influence type personality.
Yeah.
When you go into a training room and you're going to coach or train people in that room, do you prefer people to pull information from you, or do you push information at people?
So that's a really good question. Because I was in a training room in Wexford last week, and I was in a training room in Cork 2 days ago. One was for Life Pharmacy, the other was for a Skillnet. And when I go in the room, I can very kind of, I talk to people, I make eye contact, and some people engage and some people don't. I think it's not to put people on the spot, John, because training isn't that I'm putting you on the spot and making you feel nervous. Because when I go into a room, I feel sometimes that people feel that we're back at school and we're testing each other, but that's not what it's about. But that's a perception thing. So for me, it's to relax people in the room. Do I put questions on them? What I do is I put them into groups. So they're in a group together. They could be in groups of 2 or groups of 3. And what I do is I ask them to talk things out. And I go around when they're in their little safe group, and I'll ask them questions. And I might get eye contact with someone that's a little bit maybe introverted, and I'll say, what do you think about this? So it is very much questions and facilitating. I think for me personally, my training style isn't to lecture people. I don't stand at the top of the room, John, and say, this is how you manage your staff. This is how you deal. No, you need to learn by doing. So the majority of people in the retail sector, from a learning style perspective, John, they're kinesthetic learners, the majority of them. Because if you think of the work and the skill set needed, they're doers. So what you need to do is, if you're doing training with retail staff, they learn by doing. So you give them an example. So I'll say to them, okay, guys, you have to do an appraisal on a team member and you haven't done proper training with them, and they're really not meeting the metrics. So what would you do? So I give them the appraisal document, maybe they have an in-house company one, and then I'd ask them, and the purpose of that is that we can't have an expectation of others without actually giving them the training and support. So they look at doing a training plan on that particular colleague, and they talk me through how they communicate that to them. How would they follow up with them? How would they have a conversation and coach them in the moment around their performance, not in front of the team, John, but in private? And then I get them to act it out in a role play within the group. And then we talk about it. We'd have an open discussion about it. So that would be my delivery style. Because people, peer-to-peer learning, statistically, peer-to-peer learning has a higher rate of you actually learning than a lecturer standing in a room and telling you that same thing.
Good point. Well answered. Yeah, I know what you're saying there, because I had many years ago, I was sent on a management training course when I was working in England, and we were sent up to Cumbria for 3 days. We were working in London at the time, and the course tutor, he was very kind of dominant individual, and he kept talking and talking and talking for about an hour and a half at times without taking a breath. And I just found it very hard to listen to. I kind of lose track after about 15 minutes, and I kind of go into a dream mode. And he used to call me out in front of the whole room then, wake up, and all this sort of stuff, you know. I just couldn't get him, because his style just clashed with mine. And I just felt he was kind of pushing information to people, but he wasn't giving you a chance to absorb it. He just kept talking and talking. Whereas a good coach, a good trainer, a good mentor knows when to stop talking and allow the people to start assimilating that information in their own minds, to give them a chance to take a break and to re-energize themselves. But he just kept pushing people's boundaries the whole time. And people kind of got tensed up then. They got tired. You know, it wasn't particularly good. I didn't like the course, to be honest. I railed against it, to be quite honest. Yeah. Do you see yourself ever employing people within your business and perhaps developing your own franchise model, or do you want to keep it all, you know, Louise is going to keep doing her own training for as long as possible?
Yeah, I think I work with 2 individuals, and that's project-based work, John. So the way I would do that is I could get a project. It could be a year-long project or a 6-month project. I cost the project, John, and I look at, you know, from a costing perspective, if there's maybe phase 2 of the project, might be to design manuals. I'd look at the costing and I'd bring in a subcontractor there. So that's typically what I've been doing for the last 2 years. I've 2 contractors that I work with. 2 of them are high blue, which is what I need. So one of them has a really good tech background, so they help design training videos for me, and they do QR codes for the retailer. And then the other lady, Anya, is really good on the design. So graphic design is her niche, so she's really good at designing. And the other individual is really good on the technical, the videos and all that sort of thing, and editing them and stuff like that. So I would rely on those 2. Would I hire a team? I suppose where I'm going in the next, I suppose, 3 to 5 years is I'm looking to move into a more of a global market. So the US market is in my sights. I was at the NRF, the National Retail Federation in New York, a few weeks ago, where I spoke to some people that I had spoken to already online and I had meetings with. So watch this space. I have potential work. I want to travel with my company. So I won't be employing anyone yet, because I'm looking to go into other areas like the US, where the retail market is a bigger playing field. Again, they've multiple chain stores. So for me, as a company, the retail sector in there is a lot bigger and the work there is yeah, it's a lot more of a I suppose that's where my scope is at the moment. Further down the line, yeah, I probably would be bringing people in. I don't know, would it be contracted work that I would be bringing them into? Because where I see my business model is where I work with companies on a 6 to 12 month basis. And that's rolling out performance management pieces, manager training skills, all of that kind of good stuff. Or then having a retainer with them and doing that then, but having someone come in on those contracts with me is the model I've worked with, and it works quite well, John. I don't have someone on the books that I'm looking at PRSI, all these other kind of things that I have to pay out. So from a cost perspective, it's very easy for me to manage it the way I've been managing it, and it's more effective for my business model. I don't know, will that change in a couple of years? Where I'm at the moment is I'll continue my business model, but in another market, and that's kind of where I want to move into. Yeah.
And what you're saying there, Louise, you bring people in to help you whose skills complement yours. You mentioned there about the person who does the graphic design and the video editing, for example, and then the person who designs the training programs for you. But you're at your best in the training room, also meeting the clients to scope the project and actually delivering on the day. That's where your strengths are. But you need people who complement your skills. What you're probably looking at within the US market to get training there is to buddy up with a US-based trainer and seeking you then deliver joint packages and training, maybe go on and do and also develop online courses. Yeah. But I would say there to you, of course, the US labor laws are much more in favor of the employer. They don't have the same level of employee legislation as the EU have, for example. So the worker has less rights, I suppose you could say, in the US compared to the EU. We should consider moving to a market like the UK, for example, which is obviously much bigger than Ireland, but not as big as the US, obviously enough to, dip your toes in the water.
Yeah, I've worked for UK companies, I suppose, John, for what I do and my approach. And I think even the European approach in the US market is quite different. That's a differentiating factor. What might seem over here, the norm is quite different over there. It's a very different marketplace. And yeah, the employees over there, the experience is not what it is over here. We're an employee-driven market here in Ireland, especially. The worker has, I would say, more rights than the employer. And in the US, that's a different kettle of fish completely. Do I think that they need more work than the UK? 100%. Are they having retention issues? Yes. Is that because culturally people are the new Gen Z coming up don't want to put up with that anymore? Are they changing then their management style? No. So there is make quicker changes over there. There's a lot more lower hanging fruit than there would be in the UK. And the UK is very similar to the Irish market. I do have a UK client, a retailer. So I do already have two clients in the UK. One is a retailer, one is a garden centre. But it's very similar to the Irish market. So the US for me, also I want to fly over, and I like the US.
Yeah.
So there's two reasons there. Yeah.
Very brave of you to take on that idea. I think, to be honest, Louise, and good luck with that. Yeah, thanks. I think it's a great idea, to be quite honest. Yeah, fair play to you. Yeah, gosh, I know what you're saying there. And with the US, since Joe Biden became president, one of the most interesting parts of that is where he's encouraging US manufacturers such as Intel to repatriate manufacturing capacity back to the US. He's doing it in a way that he's giving workers over there in those plants, whether it's Intel or whatever, more worker rights. He's insisting upon union representation in those sites, whereas that might have happened before under a Republican president, for example. So there is some sort of resurgence of union rights within the US in these newer industries that hasn't happened before. So it's quite an interesting thing. Yeah. And one final question for you, Louise. If you were given the opportunity to have one request granted to you without question, what would that be?
One request. In what way, John?
Any request. Could be personal, it could be something bigger on the world stage. One single request that would be granted to you without question, what would that be?
Well, that's a really good question, John. One request that I could be granted that I could do. Gosh. Okay, I'm going to throw this one out there because it is in my head. I would love to up and travel for a year because I've never done a lot of travel in my lifetime. So one thing granted, I'd love to travel. I'd love to go to Asia. I'd love to go to India. I'd love to see parts of the world and culture and meet people with different backgrounds and learn their way of life. Yeah, that's something that I'm aware that I'm in Galway and I'm in a bubble and there's a bigger world out there. So if there's one thing I could do, it'd be definitely to travel for a year. You know, if I had all my money banked there and, you know, I could just go off and my son was fine because he's nearly 18. So maybe in 2 years' time that might happen. And I wasn't needed as much that I could go and travel for a year. That would be amazing. Yeah.